there were some problems. One day a basket came down, and inside the basket there was one small child, baby. So they pulled the baby out of the basket, and they wondered, where did this baby come from, or why did they put the baby in the river? Then the next week, another one. And then the next week, another one. So the people start to ask themselves, some people get the baby out and they looking after the babies in the village. And other people start to think, what's going on? So eventually somebody said, well, let's go up the river and try and find out why are the people in the village up the river putting the babies in a basket. So when they went up the river, they found that the people there were hungry. They didn't have enough food. They had their tapioca, but the tapioca was all disease. But they didn't have any. They didn't have any uto, and they didn't have any. What's the dalonitana? They didn't have any standby food. So because the people were hungry, they didn't have enough to eat. They want to save the young ones. They put the small one in the basket and they sent them down. So when the people down the river, when they saw their problem, then they got the food, the planting material. They went up and they helped the village to plant so that they would be able to live again after that. So that small story it's got something behind it. So when we see a problem, we can fix it, like we can save the child. And in our life, sometimes we can just, oh, let's fix the problem. But there's something deeper than that. There's something deeper than just fixing the problem. We have to find out what's causing the problem. And that's the point of Jesus today in the Gospel. He says, your virtue, or virtue means a good habit, your good habit must go deeper than the scribes and the Pharisees. They just want to look good. But you have to be better than that. It has to be something coming out of the heart. And so Jesus comes out with some harsh sayings. He says, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, pull it out. But does he mean that or not? Some religions, we know some fundamentalist, hardline religions, if they catch somebody stealing, in their law, they cut off the hand. That's their law. But they take these words literally. But Jesus doesn't mean that, because he also teaches that our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. So that's why we have to look after our body. But when he says to cut it off, then he means there's something deeper inside. We have to cut back at the heart. And within us, because within us we have a divided nature. Part of our nature is good, we want to do what's good, and then another part of our nature leads us in the wrong way. So that's where we have to do the work. And Jesus himself gives a good example. We see it in that movie, Mel Gibson's movie, The Passion of the Christ. Have you seen that movie? The Passion of Christ, Mel Gibson. So in the Passion, Jesus is kneeling in the garden and he's praying, and then the serpent comes, and he's praying that he'll have the courage to face his death. As he's praying for the courage to face his death, the evil spirit comes, the serpent comes. So the evil spirit is telling him the world is wicked, it's its own fault, it can pay its own price, you don't have to do it, it's better for you to save your own life. So he hears the voice, but as soon as he hears the voice, he looks and he sees the serpent, and he stands up and he takes his foot in him, puts his foot on the heel of the serpent, like he cuts off the temptation before the thing gets too big. And really that's the secret of when he's talking about cut it off. That's really what he means. As soon as we feel or hear the small voice in our mind, take something belonging to someone else, we have to cut it off that time. If we start to meditate and think about how can I take it, where will I put it, how will I find it later on, that's the thing. Now it's like the devil, the demon, get hold of us and control us. So in our heart, in the heart of all people. They found out, well, we know from the early, when people were first Christian, to be a Christian they could be fed to the lions or have their head cut off or be crucified. But 300 years after Christianity, when Constantine the emperor became a Christian, everybody became a Christian. At that time it was very easy to be Christian, and the church started to get corrupt as well. The corrupt ways came into the church when it wasn't being persecuted. So some people who wanted to take the gospel seriously, they went out into the desert, and like St. Anthony, and they called themselves the Desert Fathers, or they became the... And their idea was to go out in the desert and to fight the devil in his own territory, because in the desert, that's the place where people face temptation in their loneliness, and they face the evil one, and the idea was to beat him there and then go back to the town and help the people in the city. Anyway, when they were out in the desert, they found they want to be quiet and give their souls to God. They found out what they can be called the 7 deadly sins, or the 7 deadly tendencies, things in our heart that come up from every human heart. And they put a name on them, and they found out these tendencies or temptations in the heart of every human person. First one is pride, to be proud people; lust, to go lusting after others; anger, to be angry; gluttony, to want to eat too much; sloth, to be lazy; envy, to be envious of others, what they have; and greed. And they said these things, even when we want to be close to God and we give our lives to God, these things will always come up in our heart. So how do we deal with them? And they said, well, what we have to do is we have to watch our thoughts. It's like we have to have a mirror, or we write down what we're thinking. And when we take our thought and we think about what we're thinking, we can cut it off right there before it can do any harm. And then we have to work against it the other way. So, I don't know, there was a beautiful movie one time about the Buddha. The Buddha was because he was a Hindu himself, but he wanted to break away from all the rituals, and he just wanted to find out what's the way to enlightenment. He went out and fasted and prayed. And one day, when he was working out about these things of temptation and sin and the right way, he put one small basket on the river with a candle in it, and the candle went upstream. The river went this way and the thing went in, and he saw that the sign is, whatever our weakness is, we have to work in the opposite way. And St. Ignatius, one of the great saints in the church, he said the same thing. Like, for example, if we find out that we're people who like to take things for ourselves, we're greedy, then we go the opposite way. We decide, I'm going to give something to someone else. We take it the other way. If we are someone who is envious of other people, perhaps we see other people and we see their gifts, and we might think, I wish I could be like them, or wish I could have their life. Then the only way to get around that is say, well, I thank God for them. God has given them these gifts, and they're contributing to the world, they're contributing to the church. And thank you, Lord, for making them like that. Give thanks to God for other people who have gifts that we don't have.